Welcome to the real true American patriot. We are reclaiming patriotism from the far right, who appropriated it for their own narrow nationalist interests. Just in time for the 250th anniversary of the founding of the Republic. Today, though, we're not talking about war, Trump, all that other fun stuff. I'm going outside my usual lane. Where is my monkey? Animal videos have long been a staple of the internet. Phones, going all the way back to the start of the internet. Remember that GIF, I guess it was, Ike and has cheeseburger. People swear by their cat videos especially. I will look at the occasional animal video in the past, but really not my thing. Until one day, about 3.5 years ago, 2.5 to 3 years ago, an animal video caught my eye, the thumbnail that is. It was a monkey. He was, I guess, what attracted me. All the animal videos I've just looked right past. What attracted me was he was really good looking, and I guess he had a inquisitive, intelligent look to him. So I started watching the videos, and soon I was hooked. I'm speaking about the Monkey Bibi series of videos from Vietnam. They got up to not quite 1 million, but close to it before the channel closed down. Okay, so what was it that attracted me to it, hooked me? A person who has limited interest in animal videos. First, as I mentioned, he was really handsome. He kind of it looked like a monkey's monkey. But what really struck me really soon was how he was about 9 months old at that time, was how intelligent he was. Basically, the whole time I watched the show, 2 years, I guess, I was in a state of shock at how smart this animal was. I'd never really seen a really intelligent animal in action before. I'd seen videos of that monkey, what's her name? Gorilla Kiki, the one who first learned to communicate using sign language. Obviously very intelligent. Bibi is a stump-tailed macaque. That means they have hardly no tail, which allows him to wear diapers. Though he is house trained, uses the toilet actually, and they've always put him in clothes actually, which many people objected to. I'll go into all the objections later. But he's just so a macaque is not as intelligent as a chimpanzee, a gorilla, or an orangutan. But what made him different is he's super inquisitive. Always has to be doing something. Very active, but not like wild active. Always had to be doing something. I was always looking for something to do. When his day started, he'd come downstairs and go outside and look around. Sometimes he'd put his hands on his knees while he was standing and think, what shall I do today? And just like a kid does, or at least when I was a kid in the 50s, you go outside, first thing in the summer morning, go, what should I do today? And the weather was often very seasonable in Vietnam. But so he was always super smart. He actually, I swear, he understood the Vietnamese language, or at least certain aspects of it. His owner, whose name is Quan, would say things and he would do them. And being kind of a hierarchical animal, he sort of wanted to please Quan and do what he wanted to do, or do what Quan expected him to do sometimes. At one point, I bought this book. It was free on Amazon. It was a scientific book. It was a collection of various scientists' chapters about a type of macaque that lived in China in a mountainous park area, which is pretty famous, I guess. I forget the name of the macaque. But living how they lived, it's like, oh my God, that's a horrible life. So your first instinct is to say animals should always be in the wild. Okay, diminishing wildlife, poachers, chances of survival, questionable. So what is the great advantage? You're with other monkeys? Yeah, that's about it. And you can roam as far as you, at least within the confines of the particular forest you live in. Roam outside it at your own peril. Then I started to realize, watching this monkey, he was very loved. There was the owner, Quan, a man in his 30s. He had two young children. The kids liked him, though Bibi was like agnostic about them, I think, because he was jealous of the attention of their. He was jealous for Quan, who functioned as his father, mother, leader, group leader. And when he was younger, Bibi was often cling to him. But after a while, I realized, what monkey is living or has ever lived a better life? They kept them busy, or when they didn't keep them busy, they had room. He was often out in the countryside. He had room to play in the. After a while, when he started to climb and get into the trees to harvest fruits, he was expert climber, so strong. But let me recount some of the things he did that were so impressed me with his intelligence. First of all, he was ill off and on, so he would be going to the uh, vets quite often. The way he was, I watched the very first video. After I'd been watching for a while, I returned to watch the very first video. It was the uh, Quan discovering Bibi in a forest, ostensibly. It might have just been a skit. I mean, set up by Quan for dramatic effect. But it was this monkey, tennis ball sized. It was in the bush, covered with bits of debris, and Quan found him. Theoretically, the monkey still couldn't even sit up at that stage. So naturally, with many of these monkeys, they're bought, they're trafficked, bought. So I'm thinking, but who would sell a monkey that? Do they actually sell monkeys that tiny, days old? I was inclined to believe that that he did find him in the forest, that it's Bibi's mother was dead or had abandoned him out of fright because of one reason or another. But anyway, he's living his best life, as they say. What monkey has ever lived like that? I remember one video. He was in his house one day, and he'd get up in the morning, or it was early in the day. He loved breakfast, and he picked up a comic book. He went in a chair, started looking through the comic book. Then they had an electric piano. Then he went on over to the electric piano, pounded on that for a while. Then they had like an indoor rope set up for him to swing on. Then he does that for a while. But anyway, here's one time when they went to the vet, there was a young man there, and he had a macaque also. I think it was a macaque, but I think it was a different breed type of macaque. It was really tiny. It looked like it was near death. It was in one of those NICU boxes, NICU boxes on life support, more or less. You don't know if it had oxygen going into it. I don't remember. It was super tiny, skinny, injured as well. I said, that monkey's not going to live. No way. But the monkey eventually did live, and Quan became friendly with the man, and the man would come over and bring his little monkey. Oh my God, I think that was the first monkey that Bibi ever met. He loved that monkey so much. This one, I think he first met him when he was about 1 year old, and used to carry it around like our rag doll. Dangerous monkey. Bibi had very fine motor skills. He quickly learned to use a fork and spoon and drink from a straw, and he got his skills with the utensils got better and better over time. In the beginning, he would be spearing at pieces of food, and it might take him 2 or 3 tries to get the food on the fork. But after a few months, it just took one try. But he loved that monkey. He would if they were apart for a little bit, he'd go over to the monkey and he'd hold it, and then he would put his mouth on it like he was getting a love hit. It was just so human. But one day, early on, when they're still, Quan had a female aide to help care for Monkey. They also had another person who cared for Bibi. She was never on camera. I guess she would especially help him at night because, monkeys, I can imagine a monkey getting up at night and wanting to go around the house looking for something to do. I imagine she dressed him too and all that for the most part, though Quan often did that. Changed his diaper and gave him shower baths and cut his nails and all that stuff. They really loved each other. Sometimes I thought Quan loved Bibi more than he loved his kids. Kids were really cute though, nice. The wife was never in the picture though. Either she just didn't want to be part of the whole production or she objected to it. Maybe she was afraid of monkeys, who knows. And had let her husband talk her into this whole project. But early on, Quan and the female aide were treating the young female monkey's injuries, and Bibi walked into the room. He was like stricken. He was so upset. He was so jealous that they were giving attention to another being monkey than him. So he turned around and walked out of the room, and he kind of stopped on the stairway. He started adapting these poses where he looks stricken and in pain. They were extremely dramatic, so human-like. I could hardly believe it. Though his jealousy at that time wasn't directed at them. It was looked like he was experiencing it more internally, just in terms of how the emotional pain he was feeling. At other times he acted out on his jealousy, but this time he didn't. But then soon, Quan and the aide came out, and they paid some attention to them. I guess they could see what was happening. But that's one of the earliest indications of how we all know animals experience emotions. Even dogs, just when they want to go outside, the depth of the emotion they're expressing, it's something to behold. It's crazy that at one time, and I think some people still do that, they devalue the emotions of animals, but men have always done that with children and women. Anyway, so why is that any surprise? Let me go on to some of his greatest hits. I'll move right ahead to one of the places they stayed at. This was an upper middle class family. Was Quan's mother's house in the country. Opposite it was a waterway. It was, I don't know if they were rice paddies or irrigation ditches. They were partly concrete culverts and also just mud ditches. Often you'd see cattle out there, and sometimes the cattle would be in the water and standing up to their necks. But Bibi would often go out there, always with the cameraman. Of course, he was never alone, and wander around. But then one day he was out there with Quan too. And in the one of the concrete culverts, Bibi spotted a dog laying there. So he jumped down. He was picking at the dog. The dog was turned out it was covered with fleas and ticks. It was like almost barely conscious. So Bibi jumped out of the culvert and went and got Quan and brought him back to the dog, alerted him to it basically. And Quan could see something was up and followed Bibi back to the dog. Quan picked up the dog and brought him back to their house, where very slowly I said, that dog's going to die. I was looking at it. No way is that dog going to live. But he nursed him back to health. He's very good with animals. And the dog would just he shaved off all his hair, picked off all the ticks and the ticks and the fleas, picked them all off. And the dog just would lay out on their porch on a mat and a pillow all day long. The dog was deeply traumatized, it seemed to me, sort of in shock, having trouble coming out of it. And then the Bibi would come over and being, heavy-handed, as I just mentioned, he would mess with the dog. After a while, I could think that every time he came near, I imagined the dog thinking, oh no, not him again. But Bibi really liked the dog. One day, this Bibi was in the kitchen and he found a box. It was the kind of box that they put cases of beer or soda in, with a low, it was low, open. And then Bibi pulled it out, threw it on, dropped it on the kitchen floor, and then he jumped in it. It was like he was measuring it to see if it fit. Then the dog happened to be inside today and started standing in the hall. Bibi took the box, put it not far from the dog, about 6 feet away. Then he went and got the mat the dog slept in, put it in the box. Remember, the dog had not been sleeping in a bed. He had just been sleeping on a mat. There was no frame. The box was forming the frame. So Bibi went and got the mat, and then he got the towel. Then the dog basically resisted Bibi. He would not obey him like he would a human. So Bibi started pushing the dog he wanted, and then he started pulling him. And at one point he was pulling him by the penis. Finally he got the dog over to the bed. The dog just flopped into the bed, and the dog was like, ah. He was so glad that he was actually there. He may not have wanted to do what Bibi wanted him to do, but once there, he was so happy. It's like, and then Quan came along and he goes, Bibi, how did you know how to do that? Yeah, how did you know how to figure out a bed frame, copy, and go and get the cushion and the towel and put them there? That was unbelievable. Let me see if I can move on to another incident. I'll move on to one more incident with the dog before I start to wrap this up. One day, Bibi was walking down the street with this cameraman, and he saw posters that Quan had put up for the dog with the dog picture. The dog was kind of a labradoodle type of thing. Obviously, someone had paid a lot of money for it and was obviously missing it. So they were on walls of people's houses. Everybody's behind walls. They're kind of like in the Middle East. The houses are behind walls. And they have gates. And he ripped two of the posters down. He brought them back to the house and threw them in the garbage. Then he went back out again. He ripped two more of the pictures down and threw them in a stand of trees opposite the wall of the side of the road. When he first saw the pictures, he was a little agitated. He was actually understood that putting out the posters meant that would attract somebody who might come and get the dog and take him away from him. That I think that was the single most amazing thing I ever saw him do. And I saw him do many other things, but after this, you might want to go visit the site and see some of them yourself. But there's so much controversy attached to monkey videos. Are they being trafficked? Illegal, obviously. You're not even supposed to own a monkey in Vietnam. Maybe Quan got a license from the state, but he never showed anybody the license on the video. that I ever saw. And it wasn't hanging on the wall or anything like that. And I wondered if the same was true with the man with the little female monkey. So what's going on here? Oh, somebody that is, since the channel has gone off the air, somebody, people have been, there are a Reddit page and Facebook pages dedicated to him, mainly to figuring out what happened to him. And one Reddit commenter referred to, quote, Bibi's weirdly rabid international fan base is the strangest phenomenon. Indeed, it was. I was part of it. But if you go into the comments, you'd see comments from in all different languages, Asian, Spanish, Russian. And if you translate them, people are like so in love with that. Sometimes, occasionally, they would come to visit. Um, but still, they're leavened by offset by comments from people extremely skeptical of the whole idea of YouTube monkey enterprise, because they assumed that the monkeys were ill-gotten and that the people who filmed them who didn't care about them and just disposed them afterwards. By dispose, I mean just dropping them off in the wild. Now, here's where it becomes troublesome. One day, after a while, Quan was a businessman. As I said, they were like an upper middle class family. I think he was in real estate or something. And he kept getting busier and busier, had less time to spend with Bibi, and he'd go away on trips, and the Bibi would be left with the aides, the night aide and the day aide, and also grandmother sometimes. But so finally, his brother, who looked somewhat like him, was a little older, I guess, and had a family of his own, came from the other side of the country to stay with Bibi for a while. His name was Fong, Uncle Fong. Uncle Fong really loved Bibi as well. And Bibi is a very adaptable. He'd go from place to place. Wherever you want to take him, he'd go. And he pretty much made the transition from Quan to Uncle Fong. To him, it's, I guess, Bibi, because he was brother. They were brothers. He sensed there was a similarity between them. And Fong was very good to him. But one day, they did a skit where Fong, it was obviously a skit, Fong was talking to his wife on the phone, and his wife was telling him ostensibly that one of their kids was acting up, and Fong had to come home and help out because she's getting to be too much for the mother, theoretically. They, so finally, Fong took Bibi, and in the car, Bibi always clings to the person, to Quan or Fong when he's driving, to their chests. That's his position when they're driving. And they packed and everything, and they left. Ostensibly, their channel was going to go on a brief break. Figuring if we figured it would come back with Quan at some point, but that was it. The end of the show. Bibi never came back. Okay, so what became of him? The people seemed, unless you're entirely, utterly cynical about human beings, the people, Quan and Fong, seemed way too decent human beings to drop Bibi off in the woods. Bear in mind that at that point, Bibi was maybe 2/3 of the size he would get to be. I guess he was 3 or approaching 3 at the time. And he's probably due to gain another 12 pounds or so. Stumptail macaques get fairly bulky, I guess, especially the men. When they're younger, they're really up in the trees a lot, like Bibi was. He's very lithe, but his back was like so powerful. He was still thin, not thin, but not big. As they get bigger, they guess being bulkier, perhaps they go up in the trees less. I read where they're more of a ground-bound macaque, which was completely at odds with Bibi at that point because he was so always up in the trees. So then they obviously didn't drop him off in the woods, but how do you keep him? Well, this monkey who always weighs up to 30, will weigh up to 30 pounds. What do you do with him? He's pretty big. You have to have, and they never put him in a cage. Never. He was never caged. and I don't think they ever would, you would have to hire someone to take care of him for starters. But at that point, they didn't have the extra income because I'm sure they're making a ton of money from the YouTube channel because they were hiring. They had the photographer who was also the editor, I guess, that made the videos. He'd do about 3 a day. He was quite professional, and they had the 2 aides, so you're paying 3 different people. So, but they're getting quite a lot of income from YouTube. So what happens when you don't get any more income from YouTube? Will you have enough money to pay an aide? Uncle Fong and Quan would have to pay for it. That's where I don't know. So, um, the other reason that channel might have ended, sorry I didn't get into that, is because of all the commenters on YouTube to the various videos who are extremely negative about the whole enterprise. It's possible that Quan, as many speculated, became nervous that he was going to be turned in to the Park, New York, Vietnam Park, Department of Parks or whatever, and get in trouble. So he figured he'd better lie low. So I think that might be possibly more likely than him being too busy to keep making those videos, and Fong too being too busy. But then you start wondering, because uh, primates in the wild are a danger from illegal hunting, the trafficking, because of demand for traditional medicine, pet trade, exotic pet trade, bushmeat consumption. Then there was deforestation, which made their habitat smaller and smaller. So what would you do with a monkey that needed to be rescued? For one thing, there's a place in Vietnam called the Endangered Primate Rescue Center, one of the largest in Southeast Asia. It's located in the Vietnamese National Park. However, what's odd is when you go to their website, they have a bunch of different types of monkeys there. They list the types they have, but no macaques, which I thought was really odd because wouldn't macaques probably be the most numerous of all the monkeys in Vietnam? I'm just guessing. Or were they rejected from the center because they didn't get along with the other monkeys? I don't know. But that's like where we are right now. I have a feeling that Bibi is destined for one of those places, but where? It's been a year now. I miss him so much, and I worry about him. Occasionally, I'll go back and watch the videos, but I'm trying to move on. But I'll tell you this: I will never watch another animal video channel again, both because of the concerns about the trafficking and because if a wild animal video, and because you get attached to them, and then what? I mean, if they live in a private home. Okay, I'm going to try. I better sign off now before I get too maudlin.